So I know technically the Super Draft is not over until Monday, and that why in the world am I doing kind of like an overview video of the Super Draft when it's not even finished? Well, on Monday, that's when the third and fourth round, the last two rounds of the Super Draft, will be commencing. And like the case with other American professional sports when they have a draft, usually the third and fourth round, and usually the last two rounds of a draft, is the most irrelevant and the one that nobody pays attention to except for families or players that are not drafted in the first couple of rounds. And most of these guys are probably not going to make it into MLS. They're probably just going to get stuck in USL or maybe even get cut in USL or by the team that they got drafted. So, with that being said, let's talk about today and really the main event of the Super Draft that just happened today, which is the first two rounds. And for this year's number one pick, FC Cincinnati has decided to select Frankie Amaya from UCLA as their pick for this draft. And what's interesting about this pick is that originally LAFC want this number one pick. FC Cincinnati actually had to take a timeout right before when they're supposed to select their pick and select the first ever player to be drafted in the Super Draft. And the reason why they took that timeout is because LAFC trying to give them around $400,000 of combined of GAM and TAM money to FC Cincinnati in order to basically go up to that number one spot and most likely going to get Frankie Amaya. But instead, FC Cincinnati said, nope, we're going to make it a little bit higher. We're going to make it $500,000 that you have to pay us in order to get that number one draft pick, which that definitely is a whole bunch of money. And I know as much as LAFC really want to get Amaya, and there's a lot of reason why they want to get him. First of all, he's from UCLA, so he's a SoCal guy, and he was actually born in Santa Ana, which also kind of makes me wonder, if LAFC really want Frankie Amaya, why in the world did they not sign him as a homegrown? I mean, he's from Santa Ana, which is where the region that LAFC is based in, so they could have easily just signed him as a homegrown. And I don't think I have ever heard any news about LAFC approaching to sign this guy as a homegrown. So I feel like, what you're gonna expect if you're going to try to take a risk, especially the fact that LAFC was very low in the draft order, that it's going to take a lot in order to get themselves trade up and especially get into the number one draft pick to try to get Amaya in the Super Draft, which unfortunately they didn't do that, and instead FC Cincinnati of course approached to pick him as the number one overall pick. And overall it's certainly a very good pick for FC Cincinnati. Amaya is, I think he was one of the members for the US under 20 youth national team, and he did very well with UCLA, and he was one of the best attacking player in college soccer. And it looked like most people said that he was going to be either pick number one or even number two, and that the Quakes were actually going to scoop him up, which makes sense because he has some Mexican heritage, and knowing the Quakes nowadays are trying to acquire as much kind of Hispanic and Latino kind of heritage. And also it kind of goes very similar to the name of our new manager. I mean, Amaya Almeida kind of sounds the same, and it kind of makes sense. But unfortunately FC Cincinnati of course snatched that player before we did, and instead we actually got the second overall. Well, we actually got what many people thought was going to be the number one overall pick, and what FC Cincinnati was going to select, which is Said Haji. Now, this guy has a very incredible story that is outside of soccer. So, apparently, this guy, when he was only like 2 or 3 years old, his family has to move to Kenya, and he was actually born in Somalia. And knowing the fact that when you're born in a country that tends to have a lot of violence that is going on and tensions, He of course, Horse with his family decided to move to Kenya, and they were actually staying in a refugee camp. And during that time, he actually was trying to play soccer, trying to learn how to play soccer. That hopefully one day when he do go to the United States, he can play in MLS. And look at that, there you go. Looks like his dream is about to come true, and I really hope that Haji will play for us. I mean, it's clear that he is considered one of the best player in the draft and one of the best central attacking midfielder in college soccer. And I know that the Quakes have a whole bunch of midfielders now. It was very interesting the fact that the Quakes are decided to draft more midfielders in our team, considering the fact that we had so many. We draft so many midfielders from last year, and now we're just drafting more midfielders. But it's clear that now maybe us drafting some more midfielder might be a way where it's going to give Almeida more chance to basically play them. Remember, Almeida really loves to play his youth player, and I won't be surprised if Haji will start or even come off the bench in one of those games. But from what I'm hearing is that the Quakes probably are going to be ship him to USL. I know last year when we were drafted in the first round, and I think it was Paul Murray that we drafted, we sent him straight to Reno, and he didn't really had a lot of game time with the Quakes, if any game time whatsoever. And I'm just hoping that's not going to be the same thing with Haji. Haji is a very talented kind of player, one of the most talented player in this draft. And then we also got Sergio Rivas, which this is kind of a bit of a surprise because many people thought that he was going to be drafted in the top 10, but he wasn't drafted until number 26, and certainly this is a very big steal for us. Another good kind of talented attacking midfielder that can be used in our team and also used for our farm team, that is Reno 1868. And then in the second round, or the other second round pick that we got, was Mamadi Kamara, and he is actually a striker, and we'll see if he can potentially make it to our team, and we'll see how he does with Reno 1868. Definitely, I think he's not going to be appearing with our team a lot because he's way down the order in terms of the draft, in terms of our draft, or the guys that we acquire in the draft. But moving on, so the Chicago Fire, apparently they decided to try to take a page out of the Philadelphia Union, and apparently Nelson Rodriguez, the Chicago Fire GM, probably heard what Ernest Tanner was saying about the draft and how it's kind of a bit of a useless kind of thing. And what the Fire decided to do is that they basically got rid of all their picks in the first two rounds. First of all, they traded their number 5 pick to Colorado for a number 15 pick, which they got 100,000 GAM in this trade deal. And then after that, they traded away their 15 pick, which they acquired from the Rapids, to Minnesota, and they got another 50,000 of GAM money out of that deal. And then after that, they traded away their number 32 pick to the Red Bulls for a player to be named later from the Red Bulls. So yeah, this is just what the Union was pretty much doing, where, we see this super draft as kind of a very irrelevant and probably when you look at the talent pool in this draft, is not very good. We might as well just skip it, and basically, we will just bring in guys from our own academy, and that is how we're going to operate. Now, what's interesting about the Fire is that the Fire definitely does not have a good academy, and they don't usually bring in a lot of good guys from their academy and bring them through that way. So I'm not quite sure why exactly they decided to do that. Although, again, like I said, Nelson Rodriguez, he kind of overheard what Ernest Tanner said, and I think he even openly said that when you look at the gap between college soccer players to MLS player level, it is just really widened in these last couple of years, and because of that, that's why I decided to not really pick anybody from the Super Draft. And what he basically saying is that the talent pool in this Super Draft is very, very weak, which I don't disagree with him. I mean, it's definitely not the strongest talent pool and probably one of the weakest talent pool considering what has happened in the last couple of years and what I said about yesterday, why the talent pool has really been decimated in the Super Draft in these last couple of years. And then other news in the Super Draft. So there was actually a record 3 Canadian drafted in the top 10 spot of the Super Draft. Montgomery, Sinclair, and Buchanan are those 3 guys that got drafted. Montgomery actually were picked number 4. Sinclair was picked number 7, and Buchanan was picked number 9, I believe. Or actually, I think Sinclair was picked number 6. So yeah, it's interesting to see all these Canadian players getting drafted in the Super Draft, and this is definitely a record amount of Canadian player that we ever had in the Super Draft that got drafted in the top 10. And then FC Cincinnati, of course, traded their number 16 picks to the Red Bull in exchange for 100,000 GAN and the number 25th pick. So Cincinnati basically did something that Chicago and the Union did, which is trade away their draft pick in order to get some more money. Although FC Cincinnati has already had a bunch of picks, and some of the picks that FC Cincinnati got was from the Union, who basically just traded away all their draft pick. And 100,000 GAM is not bad in terms of getting rid of one of your pick, because I know the Union only got like 150,000 GAM out of all the pick that they got rid of to FC Cincinnati. So at the end of the day, FC Cincinnati get a big discount in terms of some of those pick that the Union got. And then the Galaxy, of course, traded away or swapped their number 12 pick to NYCFC and moved down to number 19 and also got 75,000 GAM. So again, teams are trying to trade down because they know the talent pool of this draft is not very good, and the wise decision to do is just trade down so you can get that sweet old general allocation money, so that maybe you can use that to get a player or move up in the allocation order, or even do like a trade later on in the transfer window. So yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the Super Draft overview. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the Super Draft today, and if there is anything that I'm missing in terms of what happened today in the Super Draft, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I will see you guys next time.